ran a workshop that was all around how do you tell that brand story, that passion for what you know and do, and doing it in video form. People start saying, oh, I don't want to do a TikTok. I don't want to do a dance routine. I didn't mention TikTok. I certainly didn't mention any choreography. So I don't know where this has come from. Hello and welcome to Land and Deliver.
It's the podcast where Louise helps you land that message with clarity.
And Darren helps you to deliver it so people listen, act and care.
Now, today we're talking about talking to camera.
Indeed. Now, this is something we've got plenty of experience from. We've been in the industry, Darren, I think, for a combination of probably over 50 years.
Don't look old enough, though.
No, it's the face cream. Good face cream. For over 23 years, I've worked in the media, marketing and communications industry, working with leading brands. But before I got to that, I was the one doing the interviews. I'm a previous journalist and broadcaster. Still do shows, to be fair, but I've always had a real passion for telling stories and helping people to do that. And that's why now I work with businesses to create campaigns and to make sure that they're telling their message with clarity. So if I'm the messaging side, you're the kind of, as I would say, jazz hand side of it, where you help people to look fabulous, Darren.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but when I've been, in broadcasting, I remember actually with my radio career, they had some sort of TV channel in a nightclub. It was a bizarre thing. And it was my first experience of doing stuff to camera. And I'm one of those annoying people, I'm afraid, that just loves talking to camera. And normally people look at you and go, oh, for goodness sake, why can you do it? I can't do it. And I really enjoyed it and it was great fun. But then when I've talked to people where we're making films for them and making videos for them, it's like it is that one-eyed monster.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you get a camera out, cats hate cameras. It's just like this kind of possessed thing that looks at you, and people just go, "How on earth am I going to talk to it?" Or even sometimes when people are chatting to you and you're doing an interview and they have these three cameras looking at them, that they go, how can you just have this normal conversation when there's a camera there, and a camera there, and a camera over here, right? Just looking and recording that, and it's really off-putting.
So I think it's fair to say with this podcast that because we have lived it, we know it, we do it, this is why we're sharing the benefit of our knowledge and expertise with you to help you navigate the world of media, marketing, communications and training. And today, it's all about our experiences of being on camera and working with those who are also on camera. It's not always us, front and centre. We're often coaching other people to make sure that they feel comfortable being in front of camera and being in front of the space. And I think it's fair to say a lot of the time when I work with clients and business owners to say, right, we're going to do something on camera as a pre-recorded piece, people's eyebrows shoot up and they go, what? I got to be on camera, what? And they kind of look around as if they feel like they're already being recorded. And I have to go, it's all right. And I think the first thing is I try and talk to people to say, how comfortable do you feel about being on camera? And because I'm not there to do a expert analysis to search their soul, but I'm there to try and figure out what is it that makes people feel so uncomfortable about being on camera? Because we really do flourish with human stories. And often those stories are not being told when you're sat side by side. They are being watched on a screen.
It isn't that frightening if you think about the fact that all you're doing is having a conversation. We're having a conversation right now, and we know there's cameras, there's microphones, there's lighting that you can't see, but essentially that's all it is in your mindset, is actually having, it's still at the end of the day humans talking to humans, isn't it?
It's true. I think, why do we hate being on camera so much? Maybe we feel a bit self-conscious, maybe we worry about making mistakes and looking silly, but actually, unless you're on that, no, I'm going to show my age here. Unless you're on that show, You've Been Framed, which used to be all about mishaps.
Yes, that's when you were a toddler, wasn't it, Lou?
Yes, I think so. But, ultimately, you're not going to look silly. People watching videos are not wanting necessarily for you to fail. They want to be on your side. They want to hear what you have to say. So the element of, should I do it? Am I going to be okay? Will I feel comfortable? We want to help you with this video today to feel a bit more empowered and upskilled, to know that actually you can do it. And we're going to take you through some ideas and tips on how to do that.
But you came up with a really interesting story while we were rehearsing this about how people see doing videos.
Yes, this is true. I've been running some marketing communication workshops with business owners. And what's been really interesting is one of them was themed all around telling your brand story. So it was all around, as a business owner, more often than not, you've launched a business because you've identified a pain point for a customer. You've got a brilliant idea on how to solve it. So some of the businesses I've worked with have included a drone company who's going to be flying drones for healthcare, or it could be someone who has a plant company and they're going to start sending out plants as gifts. Anyway, you've come up with this idea for this business, and I ran a workshop that was all around how do you tell that brand story, that passion for what you know and do, and doing it in video form. And when I start the workshop, people start saying, "Oh, I don't want to do a TikTok. I don't want to do a dance routine. Don't make me learn a dance." And I laugh, not to be rude, but because I'm thinking, I didn't mention TikTok. I certainly didn't mention any choreography, so I don't know where this has come from. But I think we now live in a world where, because TikTok massively exploded during COVID, with all these dance routines when we couldn't go out and we were kind of having to stay at home and shield and things, video has now become linked to TikTok and doing dance routines. And I said to people in this workshop, no, we're not doing that. We are literally talking to camera and looking at ways of how you structure your story to talk about who you are and what you do and your journey. And literally, as I tell them that, you see them go, "Oh, thank goodness for that." Because originally they're like, "No, don't make me do a TikTok." I'm like, "You were not doing a TikTok." So I think the first thing we want to do today is to try and get around that whole myth of videos don't have to be pretentious. They don't have to be something that is overly simulated as a dance routine that you've choreographed. It can be simple. It can just be you telling your story.
You know, when you're thinking about, doing stuff to camera and not doing a TikTok video, thank goodness. Because again, going back to why we're doing stuff to camera, in an age of AI, in the age of live streaming, it's still one person talking to another. It's just you've got all this stuff. It's true. In the way, right?
And we are talking about pre-recorded as well. We're not talking about live. We're talking about when, you do have a bit of luxury that you can relax. You don't have to worry about performing for this one take. It is pre-recorded as well. And, from your experience, Darren, you certainly worked on quite a few.
Yeah, I think, there are reasons why we are, or you are, required to do stuff to camera, which is why you've got to do it, and it's just like you can't get out of it. We're talking about company updates, those internal comms. A lot of companies these days are doing internal communications videos, whether it's once a month or once a week, and you've got someone who's knocking on your door going, "Can you come and do a video for us and talk about what your department's doing?" Or maybe you've been great at sales and want to, or talk about something you're currently doing or developing, and that's tapping into your passion, which we'll come to in a minute, which is why you can make actually really good contribution on camera. But also we're talking about case studies or promos about your company or organization, talking about why you do stuff really, really well. And that's really powerful. You coming along and doing something to camera is actually really powerful. You're chosen because you know your stuff. And I always say, look, if you're in front of me and you know what you're talking about, there's always a passion, isn't there? You get off talking off camera, and Louise will start talking about cooking, and I'll start talking about radio transmitters. I can tell you now, one of those is really, really dull, and it's not the cooking, right? But also product explainers. So if you're talking to me about how you've made something or cook something, and I can learn about that and think, "Oh, actually, I've never done that before. It's really, really good." It's really, really important, and those things are vital for having a human being, even in a product explainer. Would you rather see someone do something or have a death by PowerPoint on how to do it, and then you're screaming and shouting at the product that they're trying to sell you?
It's a really valid point. I think that's the thing with video. I think once we step back from thinking, "Oh gosh, it's about us," and feeling self-conscious, what you're actually doing is taking a piece of information and telling a story with it, or sharing information about it in a really easy, palatable and memorable way. That's what, with the examples you gave, the explainers and the company updates, it could be something that either takes you 20 minutes to read as a very long brochure presentation, or 5 minutes to watch. And not only is it quicker to watch a video that explains something complex, but also you are putting personality to it. You know, your company CEO of your business, for example, and maybe you're new to the role and you want your colleagues and your team to get to know you. This is what a video is going to do for you.
I tell you what, how many times between you and I, when we've done work together, have we picked up the phone and gone, do you know what? I'm just going to are you busy? I've tried to make an email. I've tried to write it down. Can I just tell you?
Yeah, it's easy.
You know, it's so powerful, isn't it, to do that?
It's easier, definitely. Saves a lot of time. And also, you can kind of laugh a bit. There's humour. If there's any misunderstandings, then you get that clarity. So even though video may not be your first go-to, and you may feel uncomfortable about it to begin with, we're really hoping that after watching this video, you feel a bit more buoyant and a bit more chipper about using it as a platform to talk about who you are and what you do. So why is being on camera different? And why do we think that we look a bit odd on camera? There's certain things we can do, I think, about making sure that we feel comfortable.
I think so. I mean, you can go through that, but I think it's almost like a bit of an elephant in the room, isn't it? Because we think it's just us. They've got the team around us, the camera's there, the person who's asked you to come and talk to camera, they know what you're going to talk about, and you feel really, really vulnerable, but don't want to talk about it. And I know you've had lots of experiences where people have opened up to you.
You want to come across as your true self and your the most authentic version of yourself. And yes, I know we don't always have cameras surrounding us, but I think if you can, as much as possible, relax, that's the important thing. But I think from your perspective, Darren, as well, you'll identify with saying to the person, you are the expert voice. You are the one that is the best person to talk about this, be it interview or explain a video. So once you have that bit of confidence in yourself, you'll know, yeah, actually, I am here for a reason, for a purpose, to share a message.
And I'll tell you what, actually, just talking from a confidence perspective, just a slight story for you, is that sometimes people have been so scared when I've been filming them and wanted to talk about, you know, what it is they do. I've often gone to press the record button and say, I'm just going to stop recording for now. Wink, right? And then I just say, just tell me about what it is that it is. And all of a sudden that fear just goes away, and they have this wonderful conversation, because, you know, you're chosen normally because you like talking about this thing, or this thing you know about. And all the passion came out, and I've gone, thank you very much. Right, I don't need to record it, actually. I've been really naughty. We've already recorded it. And they've kind of half gone, that's a bit naughty, but then the rest of them are really relieved in doing that. You know? So you know, that pain is really felt, but sometimes it can get in the way. And I think also when we talk about, you know, when that fear about being on camera, because you have it and I have it, where people say, I just look dreadful, or I just sound dreadful. There's actually really good science behind it, in that if you think about when you look at yourself in the mirror, you see Lou in reverse, right?
Yeah.
And also when you hear yourself through the soft tissue in your head. It sounds something warm and cozy and lovely. And then when you see yourself off camera or on playback, or you hear yourself off speakers, and it just looks really weird and sounds really weird. Well, trust me, you're the last person that's seen you like that, because everyone else is you look around. If you look around at all the faces, you know, and you're completely shocked about how you've come across, no one else is surprised, because that's exactly how they see you and hear you.
I know, it's true.
Get used to it.
You're right. It's about how you perceive yourself and that scientific perception. But if it isn't about people, and if we shouldn't be worried about how we look and come across on camera, what is it about then? What is it that's going to make life easier for us? We know we're the expert voice. So really, we're looking at prep. Yeah,
I think it starts, I don't know about you, but it starts and ends in prep for me.
Yeah, agreed.
And whenever I've gone on camera, or I've opened up a microphone to go on the radio, having that prep, and every person who, you know, from a BBC newsreader to someone who's commentating on sport, or anyone who gets upstage to do a presentation, you know, you have done a lot of prep. I mean, not too much so you go completely bananas about it, but I don't know about you, but I always make sure that when I go on stage, I've prepped my first 2 or 3 lines. So once I've prepped that, and we'll go into how you do prep in a minute. But the benefit of doing that prep means that if you sink yourself in what you know, which is your content, that's the bit you're comfortable in. You know, none of us are super comfortable when we go live or the camera goes live. You know, we are all nervous. It's just how we cover that up, and most people will sink into that prep because that's the bit they're comfortable with. So the fact that you're feeling nervous at this point, and when you're going live or doing something in front of the camera, everyone feels it, even those, you know, crafted professionals have been doing it 20, 30 years.
I always think of in the music world, Adele still gets stage fright. You're talking about a multi-million, billion-pound artist who has done residencies in Vegas and done the biggest stadiums and done Glastonbury. And she still talks about being stage fright. So if she can still get scared, us mere mortals, we're good. We get it. Because ultimately, you know, it happens. We're human.
Yeah.
Even on the biggest scale and the biggest performing artists or presenters will still feel that thing of, it's the adrenaline. And I suppose for me, it's also about using that in a good way, how you harness that and use that kind of butterfly feeling in your tummy and nervousness to not let it hinder you and hold you back, but also help you to feel, yeah, I can do this. And
it
that
keeps you
adrenaline.
alert.
Yeah, adrenaline.
You know, it's a natural state for the human body to be in. You know, you are in that fight or flight state.
Yeah.
You know, you may want to. You know, I remember getting in front of something like 5,000 people at an event in Milton Keynes. It was a big orchestra, and I had to go and introduce the orchestra for a classical event. And there were thousands and thousands of people in front of me. And as I walked on stage, I just kind of repeated myself my words, and just sunk in that prep and just gone, this is what I'm going to say. And I came up with something that I knew would warn them and they would come back at me. But yeah, that preparation is just such an important piece, because that's the bit you're going to feel most comfortable in.
So what do we do before filming to make a difference and make sure that we are positively prepared? The first thing, I think, purpose is so important. Just really understanding the context of why you're there. And as Darren alluded to, there's going to be different ways that you can make videos or to do that kind of presentation piece to camera in a pre-recorded sense. And there's going to be lots of different context to why you're there. As you said, it could be explainer, could be a briefing. So understanding that purpose, what is the context? What do you bring? And why are you there to give that message? I think is the first really vital piece of information.
And what I would say is it's your superpower. Forget about imposter syndrome for a second. You know, actually flip that message the other way. You are not an imposter. People have asked you to come on camera because they feel you're just the bee's knees, and actually what you know is your superpower, and that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And once you've got your purpose sorted, it's then your audience. Who are you talking to? And I think it's fair to say, if you don't know, ask, you know, if who is going to see this, who's going to watch it, who's going to be engaging with it. And I'm not saying that you're going to know like 500 names, Sarah, Sue, Steve, Dave. I'm not saying that nth degree, but you know, is it for employees? Is it for investors? Is it for customers? Because that really has a bearing on your message.
Yeah.
Because
I did a really interesting project last year for Exeter University. And had this lovely conversation with this PhD grade professor who is doing some really interesting cutting edge research that's probably one for another podcast. And I spoke to him for about an hour on the phone, and it was amazing information. But very, very quickly I'm thinking, well, okay, you know, you are this cutting edge research that probably 100 people in the world right now are doing. Really, really specialised. But you're not talking to those 100 people. Your area of expertise is going to be actually taking that and talking to the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah.
And we had to get some messaging to the Houses of Parliament. So that's his audience. And then that helps in, you know, you as, you know, a marketing director or a learning development person or someone who's, you know, working in an organisation that needs to think about the messaging to go, okay, you know, if you're sat there doing a piece to camera and they want you to talk to somebody, then who is your audience and how do you then flip your message to a way that really cuts across and lands with them? And that's really, really important, because then that also, you know, that's what we talk about, you know, not having any buzzwords anymore, because you know, no one ever asks for anything to be more complicated in this world, and it's just making sure your language sits with that audience. Your message it lands them really, really well.
And I think it's fair to say in any media marketing activity that's done, audience is one of the key things that you plan from the beginning. And once you know that, it really helps to then shape where you're going with your messages. Outcome as well. I think, what is the outcome that you expect people to take from this? Do you want them to go and further their learning and training? Do you want them to go and read something next? Do you want them to book an appointment with you? What is it you want them to do next? Because this is the thing. We think that people know, and sometimes they don't. We think, oh, they'll know what to do next. No, we have to make it obvious, and it's okay to make it obvious. It's okay to say, thank you, for example, for listening to this presentation, or, thank you for joining me for this video. I would love you to next invite people, bring them with you. In the words of some people I've heard before, hold their hand and guide them to what you want that outcome to be next. And as simple as it may sound, don't take it for granted that people know, because they could take your video and your message and perceive it in different ways. So once you understand the purpose, once you know who you're talking to, give people a clear outcome of what you want them to do next.
Yeah, and the outcome could be a learning journey as well. So,
Absolutely.
So do you want to include in what you're talking about some sort of summary at the end that says, okay, I've talked about this, and obviously you don't want to patronize anybody, but check their learning, and perhaps you have a summary at the end that just goes through it in a really, really short, succinct way.
Yeah.
So then that helps them to remember that. So when we're talking about outcomes, then we're talking about, the different formats in the way you can talk to camera. Just take us through that.
Well, there's quite a few. It may be directly pieces to camera, where you're talking directly to the camera like I am now, or maybe it's an interview. The format could also be someone who is hosting the conversation. You've done some pre-prep and discussions with them beforehand. They then know, actually, when we come to recording, they're going to steer the conversation. And you then just have to do very much a Q&A, like a spokesperson would. And in that, it may include anecdotes, stories, stats or data, but it will be then more of a two-way conversation. A pre-recorded piece could be a round table discussion. It could be where you've got a few experts coming in, and actually you're one of them, and there's other people to complement your knowledge and what you know. So format is really key as well, because then that helps you to know, what is my part in it.
If you look at the video version of this podcast, for example, he says, looking at the camera now, when you're talking to camera, it's really, really weird, because actually what you see is just this dead thing in front of you. And what most people do is what I call dead face, because when you're talking to somebody, like we're talking here, and I know I'm in shot, but Louise is feeling a bit bored. I'll know that actually, thanks, mate. I'll know that actually I've got to crack on, right? And get on with it. But when you're looking into a camera, you haven't got that. So what people tend to do is what I call dead face, where all the muscles relax because there's nothing looking back to them. So it's really understanding, if you're talking directly into camera, he says banging the microphone, that what you're doing is you're talking to a person. And I always imagine that there's someone just the other side of that camera that I'm talking to. And sometimes I recommend to people that I've done presentation training to, and I'm sure you've done the same, where they go and talk to themselves in front of a mirror, as us blokes do when we're shaving, and just have that muscle memory. So what does that look like? What does that feel like when you're talking to the mirror? And then when you're looking at the camera, so you're being conscious about that. And then when you're imagining the person on the other end, and then you're doing the facial expressions as well, then it looks more natural. And all of a sudden, it just comes alive. It's the difference between, you just doing a bit to camera because it's a bit scary, and imagining there's a person there. You can start to create that imaginary relationship, and that really helps. I
think ultimately as well, no one likes to feel under pressure. We don't perform well under pressure. Some people may do, but if you're not very experienced with doing pieces to camera and talking on camera, no one likes to feel the pressure. So I would say, just remember, we're talking today about a pre-record. So it is pre-recorded. You can edit bits out. If you sneeze or cough or drop your pen, it's okay, because ultimately you can restart at any time. Now, I've also had the other side to this, where people restart too often. Let me do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Take 20.
Yeah.
Let me do it again. Take 30. And while I say it's okay to restart again, let's not get into the habit of trying to do it too many times, because it takes away the organic messaging. It takes away how fluent it is. So yes, you have the luxury of starting again, but let's not do it too often because time is of the essence. And we also want to make sure that we get the opportunity to convey what we need to without the stopping and starting, because I actually think if you restart too often, it's counterproductive.
Yeah, I was talking to someone actually like a couple of weeks ago, and she's just starting to do stuff to camera, and I'm going to be media training her in a couple of weeks' time actually, and she's a really, really lovely, bubbly, articulate lady, and it was like on take 57 or something, and you could tell she'd lost the will to live.
Yeah, and lost your train of thought,
and let kind of perfect get in the way of good enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I always say? You know when you go walking in the countryside, right? But if you go walking in the countryside, in inverted commas, in London, you have these paths, don't you? So all of a sudden, it's not really the countryside. It's a countryside with paths in, where people have walked and walked and walked and walked. And I always think when you're doing stuff to camera and you're doing it in bullet point form, you're not doing it in massive script form, because that's a whole other thing and you should avoid that like the plague. I always see it as walking that path. So originally that path is full of grass. And if you stop at end of sentence 3 and never get past there, your path walked is so well walked up to sentence 3, and then almost it's like green grass there. It's like a blocker, it's like a wall. So I always say just keep going through it, even if you muddle on through it. Just, even if you keep making that mistake, never stop. Just muddle your way all the way through. A bit like when someone plays the piano, right?
Yeah.
They don't stop. They just get the thing wrong and then just carry on playing to the end. Because then even if you walk that path badly, if you keep going it through, you don't come to that blocker.
Yeah.
And eventually, by take 6, it's near enough there and it's fine and it's still human.
And I think it's fair to say you've got to give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
You've got to give yourself the thing of, we're not robots. You might forget bits, and that's fine. Hopefully, if you've done the prep that we've spoken about right now, you've got most of your message out there. So when it comes to prep, it is about purpose, as we said. It is about audience, outcome, the format, and ultimately making sure that, you can restart a few times if you need to. But there's also a 10-minute warm-up, isn't there?
Yeah. And I think also, if you've got someone in the room with you who can be your buddy whilst you're doing it, and actually having them kind of with you and to do that 10-minute warm-up is really good. So I know people who will, and you can look at this on Google, like vocal exercises and vocal warm-ups where they make really funny sounds. I've seen, and also if you're doing something to camera and because it's such a quiet environment, you can suddenly talk like this and it's really, really quiet, and you lack all the energy because you're sitting there and it's really, really quiet. It's like a library, and all of a sudden, you've fallen asleep. And so some people I know say, well, actually just go and jump up and down, not necessarily star jumps and start burning a sweat, but just walking around and kind of getting some energy into you. So then you can be that slightly livelier version of yourself in front of the camera.
So let's talk about in terms of if we're going to script or bullet point. So I spoke earlier about this workshop I was running that was all about telling your brand story on camera. And we worked through various kind of devices and techniques of how to do that and talk about your business journey. And I was quite cheeky when I ran the workshop because I wanted to say to people from the get-go, don't script. But I thought, let's see what they do. So ran the workshop, we start crafting their stories, and people start to script. So I didn't let them get too far with it. I then paused and said, okay, guys, hands up if you've scripted. And everyone put their hands up. I said, okay, we're not going to script. And I get lots of, kind of confused facial expressions. And we then went into a session around why you do bullet points and you don't script it word for word. Now, okay, I probably could have saved 5 or 10 minutes of time by not letting them do that, but I wanted them to have this kind of visceral memory of why you don't script and the importance of that. Now, I'm sure you've got many anecdote about this as well, Darren, but for me, one of the big things I said to the group that day, why you don't script is because you become so wedded to that script. And if you don't memorize it word for word, you're going to trip up. You're not going to get the message out there. You kind of start messing with your mind going, did I say that? Did I not? Did I say it in that order? Did I not? Because in a script, you've got it all in a kind of like a menu order. Now, while it's brilliant to have structure, a script means that you're trying to learn it word for word and you're putting more pressure on yourself. And in that workshop, I said to the group, we're not going to script. We're going to do bullet points.
And I've had this when I've been on media training courses. You get a lot of pushback, don't you? You get a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Because corporate comms, if we're talking the corporate comms world, says, I've got to say it this way. Regulatory say, I've got to put this in.
Yeah.
Or if you're a business owner or run the organisation, you start to become like a press ad, and you've got to put everything in, and everything's really, really important.
Definitely. So what do I do then? If I don't script it, how am I meant to do it? That kind of rabbit in headlights panic. And I think when we talked about the preparation for a video, and I talk about bullet points as part of that preparation. And sometimes, because of how you're recording your video, one thing tip I shared was it's okay to have prompts on post-it notes, for example. So you'll stick that post-it note somewhere that the camera can't see. And when you see that prompt that says how I started my business, for example, you'll then see that and go, right, actually, and then you'll know how to tell that story. You don't need it scripted word for word because you know it. Going back to that thing again, if you are the expert voice. But ultimately, that script would have meant that you were talking like this and reading every word. And that means we don't see your personality and we don't really get a feeling of who you are and what you do because you're talking like this. No, we can do better than that.
Well, Jamie Oliver does post-it notes.
There you go.
So I know that when he's done stuff on Zoom, because obviously when you're looking at Zoom, for example, so if we cut to this main camera here, we can see ourselves. You can see us, obviously. Hello, but we don't necessarily need to look at the camera because we've got a massive screen. So it's a little bit like a Zoom call. And what he tends to do is he tends to look at the that little camera at the top of his laptop, but around it are little post-it notes with key words that he knows what to talk about. And that's obviously for a Zoom call. So you're doing stuff to camera for Zoom, but it can be the same for, if you're doing stuff to camera and, you don't, whatever you do, ever have, I remember I had someone who had 4 A2 sheets of script, and it took a half an hour to realise that was a really bad idea. Yeah. But if you have just keywords around, that just makes all the difference because you have those conversations naturally. We don't ever have a conversation where we script what we say to our friends or colleagues, or if we're selling something to a customer, we just know our stuff, don't we?
Absolutely. And it's being comfortable with the content. And I appreciate, and I think we both appreciate that some of this, while it comes natural to us because we know it and we work with it day in and day out, we appreciate that people that we work with are going to be new to it and need to kind of feel more comfortable. So we have got some rapid rescue tools.
Yes, for those times when you panic and go, because when you've done all the prep and you sat in front of the camera, you're 100% adrenaline and it's dreadful and you want to get this over and done with so you can run away as far as you can, right? So sometimes you might just, for example, do a piece to camera and you rattle on through it, and that might not necessarily, because then they might invite you back. So that panic, if you just think about these what we call rescue remedy tips that just keep it in the back of your mind, that when you are panicking, you don't panic so much that they go, actually, we need you back. So you just run through those with us.
There's power in the pause. I think when we live in a world with so much noise, when things kind of go quiet, everyone looks around like, what's going on? I'm not saying you need to pause for 20 seconds, but there's certainly power in a pause for you to compose yourself, collect your thoughts, maybe know that there is a particular message that you want to share. And then you can say, actually, when you paused, try it again. And another reason, and you'll know this, Darren, as someone who edits lots of videos, the pause is also great for the editing person because this is a pre-recorded piece. So if you are saying something and you've got a bit confused and lost your way, you can pause and say, let me try this again. And the person who's editing the video will then hear that and see that and go, great, and know to take out the bit where you went wrong and replace it with the next bit where you're going to be fluent because you've paused and composed yourself.
Yeah, because some people go, blah, 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 I got that wrong. Oh, never mind. Anyway, I'll start again. And then they just go straight and slur into it. And from an editing point of view, you're going, okay, how am I going to do this? Because you've got words slurring into each other and it sounds clipped, or it just, what you might go is from a piece that's fast into a piece that's slow. And I'd also say a thing about pace, actually. So when I was a kid, I used to stutter. had a very, very bad stutter due to experiences as a child. And so when I was first on the radio, I spoke really, really fast. And it was only until someone coached me that actually talking at a pace that feels slightly too slow and slightly uncomfortable is just the right pace.
What people hear.
Yeah. And also your brain has time to catch up.
Yeah, I think that's true. And people can then follow your train of thought. And I think, as I said before about giving yourself grace, it's okay to make a mistake. And sometimes actually, depending on what the mistake is, if it's you just tripping over a word, for example, that will be left in the edit because that's fine. It's okay to be human and not to speak constantly like there's no mistake. So, yeah, I think smile, exhale.
Yeah, I think with the exhale thing, that's more of a breathing thing, isn't it? Because and we're all used to it. So I always say it's like talking from the fat of my belly, because actually, when people sit down in camera, they're really, really nervous. They talk from here. Yeah. They start talking because they're really, really nervous, and because your body is trying to protect its organs, isn't it? So it's clenched, and all of a sudden you're talking from like your chest upwards, and not from your belly upwards, where all that breath can come from, and where even when we're feeling nervous in the moment. I don't know about you, but when I talk, and my kids always say to this, by the way, Daddy, you're talking your professional voice, because all of a sudden I talk from the bottom of my bed, and that's my go-to, because I know if I do that thing, whether I'm in a business meeting or something's really, really important, that's my go-to set. Yeah, and it's by fake it before you make it. Yeah, to talk from the bottom and don't kind of hold my breath almost.
I do it when I'm in restaurants and if I need to complain. That's because I'm so sorry, madam, your food was cold. I was like, excuse me, I'd like to speak to the manager. And they're like, what's that? And they're like, my food's cold and it was late. Oh, and I find that talking in that such a tone and pace, they go, oh, and because I'm speaking slower and I'm emphasising different words because I'm not happy with the food.
I'm scared.
Yeah. Tell you what, I've got a few free meals that way. Not that was the purpose. But because, right. But no, because of how your pace, you're right, and how you share that and how you say it, and like you say, going to your professional voice. So yeah, I think ultimately your rapid rescue rules, as you become more experienced, you may adopt your own, but hopefully we've given you a few to get you going and to get you started. And then I suppose ultimately, Darren, what we're saying is one human takeaway is to go for it.
Seriously, when you're looking to improve, it's one bit at a time, and it's what they call marginal gains. And you think, oh, it's dreadful, but everyone started off where you started. Even as this great clip, if you will watch it, go Google it on Jonathan Ross on YouTube, where people come up to Ed Sheeran and go, oh, you're so amazing, you're so talented, and they just assume he's always been like that. And he goes around with his phone, a recording of him when he was 12. And he was just starting out. Aww. And it's so sweet, but he basically sounds like every 12-year-old who starts out trying to record their songs, right? It's really not very, very good. The difference is that he's spent 20, 30 years mastering that every single day. He's been obsessive by it. But that's a whole other podcast. But, that's where we all start. So by watching yourself and kind of looking and trying to give yourself feedback, seriously, just... one small thing, go away, one small thing changing, and don't do anything else. And, slap yourself on the back that you've done it, because, that's really, really important. And, you've done a good job.
We believe in you. We know you can do it.
We do.
We're rooting for you to know you'll be fine. So there you go. That's another episode done. And we've covered a lot there while camera, while talking about being on camera.
I know.
And we've been on camera. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Land and Deliver.
And don't forget, you can download the show notes and also get notifications of when our next podcast is out. Just visit the website and follow the details there on landanddeliver.co.uk. And we'll see you next time.
See you soon.